All right. We're going to be talking about one of the most important organs in the body today. And it's one that brought me within one day of being dead 12 years ago. And we're going to dissect that right after this. Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast, restoring vitality to you and the planet. I'm your co-host, Scott Paton, joining us as usual, health engineer Martin Pytela. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
Doing good. My computer's acting up. I hear only every second syllable, but I'm fine.
Good. I'm glad you're fine, and I don't know if it's.
I wish I had rebooted.
Well, I always wonder if it's the computer
because it comes to
internet.
me with a delay, and it's something.
Well,
it's very frustrating because I don't know if you're talking or not, and I'm going to be stepping all over your toes, and it's. Ugh.
I've been quiet. Last week, Martin had laryngitis, and this week he's given it to me, even though I am like 12,000 miles away. The power of suggestion is what he said earlier in the day when we were talking about it. And that's really a key thing too, isn't it? Right?
Okay,
like so suggestible.
I'll raise you. Scott, I'll match you this one and I'll raise you one other. When I was a 10-year-old, I got sick. No, I was younger than that. 6-year-old. I got sick with hepatitis. And then when I was 10, I had a second bout of it. And when I was 15, I had mononucleosis.
Holy smokes.
All of which are viral, liver. I was disqualified because I could not eat the army diet because it would have killed me. I had what's known as hyperbilirubinemia. I would turn yellow. My eyes would turn yellow. My hands would turn yellow. That sort of stuff.
Wow.
When I ate the common diet.
Anyway,
that's Martin's story, right? So I'm 60 years later.
Yep. Holy smokes.
I don't know what to do with my computer, Scott, to make it work.
George says, ouch. If you want, Martin, you can reboot and I'll tell everybody my liver story. And when you come back, we'll talk about what we can do to protect our livers. Awesome. All right. So Martin will be back in a minute. And I think part of the problem we all have these days is 300 windows open, and each window has 300 tabs open, and it just drives our hard drive crazy. So 12 years ago, I began an interesting journey to the hospital because my liver stopped. And George says I had to restart his 10 minutes ago. And R.U. Adams, it is working. Thank you. And it was a crazy experience because for no reason, my liver just stopped. And when your liver just stops, it causes a whole bunch of problems everywhere. And I was getting tireder and tireder. And then finally one Friday afternoon, I'm laying on the couch, tired. And I have this massive pain go up one side of my ribs and down the other. And it was pretty incredible. Could not move. Went down to the downstairs to my son, and I said, drive me to the hospital. And he said, shouldn't we get an ambulance? I said, no, we'll get to the hospital a lot faster. And he stopped in front of the hospital door and walked me in. And the nurses can tell when it's life and death and when it's someone's got a sliver in their finger. And immediately there were two nurses on each side of me and a wheelchair. And they wheeled me in. I gave them my information. They put me in a room, took some blood. About 2 hours later, I don't know if they did anything else. I mean, when your liver's not working, your brain's not working. So I'm sure I'm missing many details. But what I do remember is when they came in and they said, we took a little longer getting your results because you were so off the charts from our test that we had to send it to another hospital. And so basically all the enzymes that should not be going like this were going like this, and all the enzymes that should not be going like this were going like that. And I was in the hospital for the next 5 or 6 weeks. And they tested everything that Chris asked, am I okay now? Yes, I am fine now. And here comes Martin. I think here comes Martin. We got no picture, Martin. There you are. Oh, maybe the problem is welcome back. Bad news, Scott. Yeah. Well, it was 12 years ago, and as you can see, I'm still living, so I survived. But it was really an interesting experience because they would test all these things, and they said, you don't have cancer, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have hepatitis, don't have anything. It just stopped. And one of the ultrasound people said, you have a very nice looking liver, like your liver looks just perfect. And then almost like he's talking to himself and forgets I'm there, he says, it's almost like you were poisoned. And as far as I know, I don't have any mortal enemies that would want to poison me, but I do recall seeing a lot of chemtrails in the air. And I was traveling through the Rocky Mountains, and I just wonder if the change in the air and change in the water and the change in the food it was a perfect storm, and my liver just said, that's it. Or it was a slow moving poisoning, and the liver just finally said that's the end of that. And the liver itself that's bad enough, but it regenerates. But because it wasn't doing any work, the kidneys and the pancreas had to do extra work. So they went on strike. And they said, okay, you have an inflamed pancreas. That is about, that's going to kill you if we don't do something about it. And we don't have any drugs, which, obviously this was well before COVID, where now everything has a drug solution. And they said, what we need is you have to not drink and not eat, which of course is called starving and dying of thirst. So they stuck a whole bunch of stuff in my arms, and I laid in bed for a long time. And every once in a while, they would go and give me a small meal because you just can't not eat forever. So that was pretty crazy. And then one day, I said to my mom, I said, I need to change my will. A little late, right? So she went in to see the nurse, and the next thing you know, the nurse is then giving me this big lecture of you can't give up and all this sort of stuff. And I said, well, I just want to change my will. And I think that was the day that they told my mom to go to see a mortician and prepare for a funeral. I'm sure it was this. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would bet that that was the same day. And I didn't know that they told my mom tomorrow he's going to be dead until 6 months later. And my mom and I are talking about something. She says, yeah, they told me that, you were going to be dead the next day. And I go, what? Why didn't you tell me? And but the other thing that happened in my life, because oftentimes, I think health is a combination of what you stick in your mouth, what you drink, what you breathe, what you do, but also what goes on up here. And 6 months to a year earlier, it was actually a little over a year earlier, my dad passed away of leukemia. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to allow my mom to bury her husband and then bury her son in 2 consecutive years. And after that, everything started getting better and better and better as far as the charts were concerned. And then and then of course, when you sit 6 weeks or lay 6 weeks and you don't get out of bed, all of your muscles atrophy. So I didn't know if I could walk to the painting behind me when I got out. And they said, yeah, you're getting better. You need to start exercising. Okay. And they gave me a walker. And I'm like, there's no way I am going to use a walker. That's for old people. But I didn't know if I could get to that painting and back, right? And I thought, well, what if I get to the painting and I'm standing there in the middle of the hall and I can't move? So I took the walker and I'm holding it off the ground as I'm walking. Like I refused to put it on the ground, right? And of course, where we were, there was a little hallway. There was a nurse's station. You could walk around the nurse's station. So the nurses would constantly look up and they'd see me going around and around and around. And then I'm thinking, oh, I'm fit now, right? Because I can go around like 10 times. And the physiotherapist comes in and says, okay, Scott, we're going to the stairwell. And I go, what? Yeah, you're going to walk upstairs. Oh, okay, no problem. 12 steps. And I was exhausted. It took me 10 minutes before I could come down. And I thought, holy smokes. And yeah, Kevin, it was one thing after the other. So
I tell you, stairs are an incredible test. You know, people who live on hills or people who have stairs to contend with maintain their muscle mass and their fitness way longer into their life than the ones that live on shuffle your feet without having to engage the quads.
Yeah, yeah. During COVID, I was in Medellin, Colombia, and I found an Airbnb. Of course, all the Airbnbs were empty because nobody was coming to town. Everyone was staying home. And it was on the roof of an 8th-floor building. And it had 9 flights of stairs going up. And I would order food in, and then I'd have to go down to the basement, down to the street level, get the food and go back up. And twice a day, I'll say once a day, but sometimes twice a day, I would fly down the stairs and then I would go back up. And by the end of the 9 months, I was almost running up those stairs. I just think it's an amazing set of exercises that you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things that I want to do something a little bit different than what we normally do. And that is I want to bring a product up to show people. We usually do it later in the session, but I think this is something that I do twice a year. I get a bottle twice a year.
Let me just go engineer for a moment and just describe the function. Huh? Like your liver is a complex organ and it processes foods in 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And in phase 1 is a lot like you take something dangerous like a hand grenade and you actually pull the pin. You actually activate all of the things, meaning this. The dangerous chemicals that the liver is supposed to neutralize, it has to make them even more dangerous so that it can neutralize to them, and it's either sulfation or methylation or phosphorylation or something. It attaches something to that chemical so that it can be neutralized in phase 2 and then transported out of the body in phase 3. In the phase 3 is to take the packaged stuff and push it into the bile, and the bile goes into your gallbladder, and the gallbladder finally pushes it into the gut. Anyway, that's the engineering of it. And if you don't have enough bile, and bile is made from bitter things, then you're going to be underperforming in the department of being able to remove the toxic things out of your body. Anyway, Scott, here's your new liver story.
Just a sec. I can't find the right place. Here we go. Yeah. So this new liver is basically it's to support your liver. And one of the things you talked about when you were a youth and had hepatitis, I had hepatitis when I was 22 and I was on my back for 3 months. I had gone to India. I'd gone to Australia actually, and then I went to Southeast Asia, and then I went to India. And I ate something in India that disagreed with me and made me very sick. And then when I got better, I just felt off. So I headed home. I thought, oh, this isn't good. I better head home. So I headed home and saw my doctor, and he said, yeah, you've got hepatitis. And so I ended up.
Now, hepatitis, just to be clear, anything that has itis means inflammation. and HEPA is hepar. This is the word for liver. So all it means is that you have inflammation in your liver.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds mysterious, but it's just inflamed liver. And when it's inflamed, that means that there's stuff going on. There's fire.
There's fire. Yeah. And the way it showed up for me was absolutely no energy, and I'm yellow. And so I would wake up around 8 in the morning, and I would walk downstairs, and they would feed me breakfast, and then I would sleep. And then lunch came around, and they would feed me lunch, and I'd watch the noon news or the game show or whatever they were watching. And then I would go back to sleep on the couch, and then they would have dinner, and I would eat dinner, and then I would go back to sleep. And at 8 o'clock, I would walk back upstairs. And there were times when I just wanted to take a knife and cut my stomach open because there was this pressure, and it was just, it was terrible. And then one day it was like a light switch went off, and I started getting better. Like, I actually remember when it stopped being bad and started getting better. And this was January in Winnipeg. There's 3 feet of snow, and it's minus 10 or 20 degrees. And after a while, it's like, I have a whole bunch of energy. I had no energy, but I had a whole bunch compared to what it was like the previous 3 months, right? So I said, I want to go for a walk. And of course, I'm still in this fuzzy stage, not really knowing what's going on or paying attention. But when I think back, I remember that everybody had a look of abject terror on their face when I said I wanted to go outside. And I walked out to the sidewalk, and then there was one house to the end of the road. I walked to that end of the road. There was a light there, and I stood there for 20 minutes because I just ran out of energy, right? So there I am, minus 10, 20 degrees. I've got the park on and everything. There's snow all over the place, and I'm not moving. And then eventually I turned around and I went back. And a few months later, they said, yeah, when you left, we didn't think you were going to come back. Like, what they meant was they were standing beside me thinking they were going to have to help me back, right? And I didn't realize that they had, got their park on, and they all went outside to make sure that Scott didn't end up in a snowbank somewhere and wouldn't be found for 3 months.
You and your liver stories, I tell you. Okay, yeah. So how about
Kevin,
this? Right?
Actually, Kevin has a really good comment here. I'm interested in the product. I already looked at the ingredients, and they look really good based on everything I read in the past. So let's talk a little bit.
I fed this thing into the AI, the ingredients and the composition, and they said, holy smokes, this is one of the best things around. It's pretty complete. And then they gave us a couple of hints, and we have implemented those, and so they are actually in it. And the main concept here is that when you eat this or when you consume this, you have all the building blocks for building liver tissue. So that truly will do a wonderful things for you.
And it'll also do a detox, right?
Oh yeah, of course. You have to, in order to build anything new, you first need to make room by getting rid of toxic things. Yeah.
And I just find it's
it's the ingredients that tell the story, but it's the emulsification. So see, when you look at it, coenzyme Q10, which is the stuff that helps the body with energy conversion, mitochondria healing. Silymarin, that's the famous milk thistle ingredient that makes liver work. Sunflower lecithin. Lecithin is an emulsifier that binds anything that's fat into things that need to transport it. Turmeric is the famous anti-inflammatory herb. Burdock serves in the body as a digestion support. That's the elimination stuff. And acetylcysteine, that's the support to the glutathione, where glutathione is made in the liver. That's where you build vitamins, antioxidants. And MSM, sulfur, is a super important thing because without sulfur, you don't transport energy, oxygen in and out of cells.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. So those are the highlights. But then you look, there are like 100 things in there.
Yeah. And it's really, really funny, because it has NAC. So I'm reading an article, and this guy said, yeah, NAC is awesome. Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
It's the bomb, yeah.
So then I started looking around for it, and I see, there's some bottles here. And then I look at the ingredients, and it's in it. And then MSM is the same thing. It tastes terrible.
Energy, yeah.
By itself, it just tastes terrible. And I thought, I need to get MSM. And then I look, and and I've been getting it every day because the way I do it, and yeah, you and I do it totally differently, I think. But in the morning, I have a glass of water, and then I go and I put I get another glass of water, and I stick the new liver in, or the iridescent, or whichever superfood I'm on for that month, and then I drink that all down, and then I don't have anything else till noon.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I
and
do the same thing, Scott. I combine a superfood of the foundational type, which would be like the iridescent or powertine or something like that. And then I combine it with the therapeutic type, which like new liver is one of them. We have the liver, heart, pancreas, and bones, different types, right? So this is the liver one. And so I actually cycle. Oh yeah, the fifth one is the cancer module, the one called Allogiplex.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I just think it's really good to be able to go through and rotate through them, right? Because we
Yeah,
need,
totally. Yeah, you support these different systems.
yeah. And my philosophy on it, I think it's because of in my 20s, I was so sick, and it took 3 or 4, 5 months before I was back to normal. Is I always think of the preventative part of it. Like a lot of times, I don't
Yeah.
think people really think, oh man, I got to, you know,
Yeah.
drink less booze, or I got to do this, or I got to do that, until there's like an emergency, and then you're like, you're going to do it or you're going to die, and then you have the motivation to do it. Whereas I'm kind of like, what do I need to do to keep building a strong body so that this doesn't break down on me? And the other thing I think, Martin, that affects me is my grandparents on my dad's side lived to 102 and 103, and on my mom's side to 89, 90. And so there's these longevity genes, right?
Yeah.
And wasn't it didn't translate to the next generation, because my dad didn't live to 102, my uncle didn't live to 102. They lived till the mid 80s. And I know why, because they were executives, high stress business, drinking too much, eating the wrong foods. And
Yeah,
and
they were not farmers. They were not living on organic food that grew 20 feet past the front porch, stuff like that.
right. That's
Now,
exactly right. My grandparents were all on the farm. They grew their own food. And George
Yeah.
says good numbers. Yeah, they're great numbers. So I try to emulate my grandparents more than my parents and my aunts and uncles, because
yeah,
I know what's possible. And yeah, and the environment was a lot cleaner too. I think I never want to forget that, they were on the prairies. You could see for 100 miles or 1,000 miles.
no, not 1,000. But you could watch the dog run away for a couple of days.
That's right. So I mean, there wasn't factories, and there weren't cars, and they were gravel roads, so there wasn't tarmac, and there wasn't tires getting ripped apart.
Yeah.
Small,
Yeah.
so lots of differences, right? And but yeah, the liver is really, really important. So what are some foods that people can eat that's going to help their liver? And I think one of the things that we want when we're talking about this is we want to make a note of metabolic typing, right?
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the worst thing that the doctors did for me when I had my liver problem is that they gave me a bowl filled with sugar, refined white sugar, and said, you need to eat this. I was gagging it down because they told me to, but it was the stupidest thing. And then they also told me that fat made me worse.
Right.
It didn't. What made me worse was high starch and alcohol. Like I brought on in my 20s. In my 20s, I was living the student life, and I was trying to keep up with my buddies.
Right.
And I couldn't. I wrecked myself with drinking beer and wine, and I had to accept the fact that that's not a thing for me.
Right.
So anyway, the things that will promote health in your liver, one is bitter foods, for sure. Two, fat is not a problem. Your problem is starch. So it starts with wheat, rice, potato, and sweet potato and corn and blah blah whatever, and then the next layer is alcohol. Those are the things that will do bad. And strange enough, fruit is also not your friend because fructose is not digested anywhere in the body other than the liver. That's where it has to get metabolized.
Right.
Because fructose, by the way, is 5 carbons with hydrogens around it. Glucose is 6 carbons with hydrogens around it. And somehow they need to convert that 5 string into the 6 string, and then that 6 string becomes glucose, and then the glucose is converted into triglycerides, and that is either, well, glucose is either burnt or converted into belly fat.
Right. So Kevin has a wonderful comment here. Well, not that he had to drop out of college. He had to drop out of college.
Yeah.
A lot of the experience you two have had resonates with me.
Yeah, probably it was a health issue that all of a sudden you find yourself away from home in a bad diet, in a bad company, doing stupid things, and all of a sudden your metabolism actually crashes on you. Yep.
Yeah. And Martin, it seems to me that I know we've sort of talked about this over the years, that what you and I could get away with, the people that are in their 20s and 30s now don't seem to be able to get away with. Like, it just seems younger people are getting chronically ill.
You know, I see that as the rising tide of the toxicity of the industrial society, of the environment, right? Like with every pound or every ton of glyphosate that you make and put on the fields, the planet's more toxic. With every pound of Teflon or the C8 or whatever the precursors are that you bring to the planet, the environment is more toxic. So if you think of us as living in an aquarium, the aquarium is getting more and more polluted. So the starting level of toxicity in your grandfather was between 1820 and 1920, and not a whole lot happened. Maybe some coal burning.
Right.
But then after the coal burning came gasoline burning, then came
factories,
asphalt for pavement, and then chemicals, and then pharmaceuticals, and then agricultural herbicide and pesticide. Those are ramping from different years, and so it goes up exponentially. That's all I can say on that.
Yeah, and mercury gets pumped into the atmosphere tons and tons at a time.
Yeah, coal burning puts it out, and of course, then they have decided to put it into injections. You know, this adjuvant thing. They have constructed a vaccination as something that requires that your body mounts a vigorous response. Well, what they put in it is something that's going to really irritate the body, so it tries to get rid of it. So they came up with formaldehyde and mercury. Later, they found that the mercury was so toxic, it was giving people autoimmune disease. So they switched it for aluminum, which doesn't give people an instant physical autoimmune disease. It instead destroys your liver, not liver, your brain in a few years after. Right? Like the aluminum is now known to be associated with decline of brain function. The thimerosal that still to this day is in polyvalent or multivalent injections and also in flu shots. It's no longer in the childhood vaccinations.
I had someone once tell me that thimerosal.
This is misspelled, by the way, but that's okay.
Is not toxic at all. And I go, well,
totally not toxic. That's what Robert Kennedy has discovered too, because he went looking for the problem with fishermen in Hudson River and found that it was the mercury in the fish. Right?
Yeah.
It's dangerous when it's in a fish, but it's perfectly safe when it's in an injection made by a pharmaceutical company. That we know.
Right. And we wanted to talk about liver gallbladder formula.
Oh yeah, it's called Digest Ease LG. And this Digest Ease is a tincture, and it's designed to help stimulate the digestive pathway. And L stands for liver and G for gallbladder. And it's for people who have had their gallbladder taken away, or people who are having trouble with fats, right? If you have difficulty digesting fats, you need support in the bile department. And that's what this supports.
How would you know if you had difficulty, Martin?
You burp, you bloat, you have hard time digesting. And at the back end, if your poop is light colored, like mustard yellow or light brown, you're definitely not digesting fats. And if it floats, you're having trouble. And if it stinks, you're having trouble.
Well, I can confidently say that my poop doesn't stink. It
Of
smells
course,
delicious.
now that you're well, it doesn't.
Or it's just me and I'm used to it. My son, I gave my son an ice cream maker.
You told this story 3 weeks ago.
And he was so funny. He makes this chocolate ice cream and he's opening it up. And I'm thinking, oh, that looks good. It must smell great. And I go, oh. And it turns out he had farted. So it was pretty funny. He might need some liver gallbladder formula.
Yeah, he needs that.
And this is a herbal extract.
Yeah, it's a herbal extract, typical classical herbal tincture.
So it helps with the digestion, the liver, and the gallbladder. I didn't know about that. So this is another thing I get almost every month is one of the Earth Friends herbs.
Yeah.
And
we have several of these. The really popular is the fungus ease for people who have mold exposure. So anybody who lives in the tropical climate with lots of humidity, they should be on fungus ease. And we have cortisol ease for people who are coping poorly with stress. You know, the folks that are wired and tired at the end of the day.
Right. Kevin has an interesting comment. Every once in a while, my poop is yellow and I worry. Not always, though, and that is good.
Yeah. So, Kevin, the time that it happened is when your liver went on strike. It just something broke it that day. Something didn't happen. The bile didn't flow.
Yeah.
The basic prevention, either this Digest Ease or there's a product we sell. It's called bitters. There's bitter number 9 or bitter number 10, and those are awesome. And you can just use those as a source of the material that your liver needs to build bile.
Yeah. Cool. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and hopefully you all recognized our Pixar Martin. This is what happens when Scott plays with the program, and he goes, "Oh, I'm going to make something," and then here it is.
Scott, you're so cute when you play with your newly discovered gadgets.
Yeah, and I still don't know how to make it work properly. It's so frustrating because I do it once and think, wow, this is cool. I want to do it again, and it's like, oh, it's like I never did it. But so, what would be your if someone has a good healthy liver? What would be like the 3 things that you would say in order to keep it healthy, right? Because most people, 20 is great, 30 is great, 40, 50s, 60s, 70s, down.
Well, one. Don't believe the lie that fat is bad for you. It's not. What's bad for you are overly refined carbohydrates.
And what about seed oils, overly refined oils?
Okay. The second thing I was going to say is the highly processed, industrial processed seeds, omega-6, right? So that would be the sunflower, safflower, canola, cottonseed, corn oil. That sort of
anything
stuff.
That's on the shelf for a year before they take it off.
Yeah. If it says refined seed oil, all the good things have been taken out of it.
Okay.
We refined it away. bitter foods. Eat bitter foods. So that
What are
would be,
examples of a bitter food?
they're usually in the salad. Rocket, arugula, endive, dandelion leaf, if you can find some that has not been sprayed or pissed on by dogs.
Yeah.
Plant your own dandelion patch, protect it, and eat it.
Yeah, dandelion root's supposed to be really good when you crush it up, and
Yeah, that's the bomb.
that's the bomb.
We put that into new liver, of course.
Well, and I guess that's the answer, right? Is go to life-enthusiast.com, contact Martin, spend some time talking to him. We talk about things in a kind of a global macro level. Obviously, we can't talk to you about specifics because everybody's different. But Martin really is a health engineer. He'll listen to what you have to say. He'll take it all apart and he'll build something that's absolutely amazing, and your health will get a lot better.
Yep. Customized solutions. That's what works. We do renovations, and no renovation is like the other. You know, like when you rip out something floorboards out of the bathroom, that's when you find out if the joists are rotted or not. Right? Yeah. And anyway, it's a whole lot like that, right? Like no construction guy, a renovator, will give you a firm quote or an exact time how long it's going to take. He'll say, well, first we take off the surface layer, and then we'll look under the hood, and then we'll discover what's really going on. And that's how it is with every person we encounter, because if you treat it as if it was a new construction, you end up with crappy results.
I had a friend who slept in a waterbed for 20 years, and he was always getting sick. And then finally he says, I'm going to get a new bed. And he took his waterbed apart. It was so full of black mold underneath the wood, like underneath it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, no wonder I was sick. Look at all this stuff that was getting into the air that I was breathing.
Yep,
and,
exactly.
I
had a black mold experience that freaked me out. We had a bed, and the head was against the outside wall, and it was a poorly insulated wall, so the gyprock was cold, and the moist air, humidity, would condense on the surface of the wall, and it was just make the wall just wet enough for the black mold to thrive in that low circulation terrain between the wall and the headboard, just where I was sleeping. Go figure.
Yeah. So George says, I drink black walnut green hulled liquid 7 days a week.
Well, George, everybody should do George stuff every day.
That's right. Awesome. Okay, so we've come to the end of our time together. Went actually a little over, but that's okay. And we love you, and we want to share this information with you. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share, tell your friends. Try the products. They are absolutely amazing, and unlike anything else that you're probably going to buy, certainly in stores, it's made with love, and it's made so that everything has a maximum benefit. And it's not just a bottle with a bunch of powder that was ground up and burnt up and has no real value. So with that, thanks for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate you. Martin, thank you for taking time out of your busy day, and we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Oh.
My body's a temple, but the walls are cracked. Stuck in the rubble of the years I've stacked. Stagnation in my veins like a river to the dust. Toxic whispers in the wind, but I gotta rebuild. I must.